Hey everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of the Rock and Roll Experience with Mike Brunn. Today I'm really excited to have on the show with me the metal cowboy himself, Ron Keel. We'll talk everything about his new CD, South by South Dakota, and of course, we'll take a look back at the success he had in the 80s and his time working with Gene Simmons. I think you guys are going to really enjoy this episode. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button below. If you're listening to one of my podcasts, subscribe over there as well. Also, head on over to Facebook and follow my page, The Rock and Roll Experience with Mike Brunn, where each and every day we talk about all the rock and roll music that you love. Now, without further ado, let's get started with my conversation with the one, the only, Mr. Ron Keel. All right, hey everybody, welcome to the latest episode of the Rock and Roll Experience with Mike Brunn. Today I'm super excited. I have a very special guest with me today. You know him as the Metal Cowboy. Please welcome to the show, Mr. Ron Keel. How you doing, Ron? There we go.
Great.
Woo-hoo, there we go.
Talk to you, Mike. Hello to you and all your viewers and listeners.
Awesome. Nice to talk with you today. So, let's just start right at the top. You got the tattoos. We all understand why you're called the Metal Cowboy. When did that start and how did it start?
Well, as many fans and viewers and listeners know, I had a really nice run in the 80s.
Absolutely.
The band called Keel.
Mm-hmm.
Sold a few million records, had a lot of dreams come true with touring with Bon Jovi and Van Halen and Motley Crue and Aerosmith and so forth, and 3 records that charted on Billboard's Hot 100 charts.
Yep.
And then in the 90s, as many people know as well, I chose to explore a new territory in country music.
Yep.
And so after spending pretty much a decade in metal and a decade in country, I realized I wasn't really comfortable or at home in either genre because there are a lot of similarities between the 80s metal media and the fans and the 90s country media and the fans. They all wanted you to talk a certain way or act a certain way or wear a certain type of clothing or sing a certain type of things you can't do. You can't say that. You can't sing that. You can't. So I built a place in between those two territories where I can live comfortably, kind of like my dream house in the middle of no man's land. And it's a place that I call Metal Cowboy Land. And it's right in between those two genres where I still have the love and excitement of arena rock and heavy metal. I love the song structures and stylings and stories and melodies of country music, and I found a place where I can be comfortable in between as the Metal Cowboy.
There you go. And we're both, I know you like Kiss, I like Kiss, right? I remember in the 90s, I remember in the 90s, Garth Brooks was the guy when you talk country, right? There was nobody bigger than Garth. And all of a sudden people start hearing he's a huge Kiss fan, and we all know he did, Hard Luck Woman with Kiss. And so there's certainly that crossover between them, even dating back to the 90s.
Yeah, there's a lot of similarities between the two genres. Of course, each one has their own extremes. Yep. And when I was growing up, metal, so to speak, what was metal? It was, for us, it was Judas Priest.
Sure.
Songs like Heading Out to the Highway were metal. Saxon was metal.
Absolutely.
Denim and Leather. Now, metal has grown and evolved into something totally different than what we were listening to in the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s. And at its core, it's all music. I grew up listening to, I just love everything on the menu. When I was a kid, I played jazz. I have a classical background in the school orchestra, playing a variety of instruments, learning to read sheet music, having that real foundation of musical training.
Absolutely.
And I grew up in a time when you could hear the Eagles and Black Sabbath on the same radio station.
Sure.
And I didn't realize that there was really that extreme of a difference between Paranoid or Take It Easy. I thought they were both great songs, and I learned them both. I'm still singing both of those songs to this day. So I didn't believe in any type of prejudice, whether it's musical or otherwise. And I just love exploring new territory. And nobody wants the same kind of tile in their bathroom. Nobody wants to eat the same thing for dinner. We all have our own tastes. And mine happens to be, both of those extremes, metal and country. And when you put them together, it ends up sounding like Southern rock. That's the basic, easy, generic term for it, even though it's not geographically exclusive to the Southern United States.
Right.
Southern rock is a state of mind. It's songs about drinking beer, chasing women, and living the fast life, and living hard and playing hard.
Right. So to that point, right, you just put out a new album, right? And it's a bunch of Southern rock covers, South by South Dakota. So a great bunch of covers. How did this album come about?
Unlike any project I've ever done in my life, always, you go into the studio with a game plan. You've written a batch of songs or collected a batch of songs, and you've rehearsed and you've done your pre-production, and you go in there with a checklist and your game plan, so to speak. When we went in to record last year's Fight Like a Band album, we would go in the morning, and the first day we set up at the studio, got the drums mic'd up, and you get all the guys with their headphones on in the different rooms, and you start getting levels, and we just started jamming Flirting with Disaster by Molly Hatchet, a song that we know and we've done in our shows from time to time. And we warmed up with that one just to get loose, and so the producer could get levels. And then at the end of the day, we'd have a couple of cocktails and jam a couple more. I think that first day we did Flirting with Disaster and 38 Specials, Rockin' Into the Night.
Wow.
The next day we come in, and I think we did Mamas Don't Let Your Babies Grow Up to Be Cowboys, the rocked up version that's on South by South Dakota. And so this went on for a few days until I realized that my producer, Mike Dresch, was recording these jams. And I said, well, play it back for me. Let's listen to it. And I heard those rough recordings and realized, man, this is something really special. You've got 5 guys in the studio together just having fun, playing songs that they love, and we didn't even know we were being recorded. So there's a certain magical element to that. It's very organic, very natural, and very unscripted.
Right.
So I realized at that point, after listening back to those first 4 or 5 takes, we've got something special here.
Sure.
We could conceivably add a few songs and create a tribute album to this iconic genre called Southern rock or classic Southern rock, whatever you want to call it. We already had Ghost Riders in the Sky, which was our debut single as the Badlands House Band in 2015. And we had released Homesick, the Atlanta Rhythm Section song, as our single in the summer of 2017. So then you're looking at 5, 6, 7 songs we've got in the can already. What else do we need to fill out this project? You got to have a Skynyrd song, right? So we did Red, White, Blue. Red, White, and Blue, which is one of my all-time favorite Leonard Skynyrd songs, and not one of their more, I mean, it's not Sweet Home Alabama.
Right.
It's not Give Me 3 Steps.
It's not an obvious choice, but it's a great song.
And we chose the Allman Brothers track, Ramblin' Man, because I did know that song, actually. And with that, the cool thing about Ramblin' Man on the record is it really is a first take. We listened to the track. I knew the song already, but I didn't know. Nobody knows all those fancy harmony solos. We listened to the track. The guys went through it and kind of learned the parts real quick, and we just laid it down 1, 2, 3, 4, and played it. So what you hear on the record is really a live first take.
That's awesome.
And there's a few wrong notes in there too. I mean, some of those passages are very difficult, where the keyboards, the guitar, and the bass, they're doing a lot of quick movements. But I thought, let's just leave it that way, man. There's a couple of suspect notes, but I think the Allman Brothers had a couple of suspect notes in their version as well. So we left it at that, and we kind of just fleshed out the record with, for certainly a live medley from Creedence Clearwater Revival, which closes out the album. And that's a very special piece of the audio scrapbook from the Ron Keel Band, because it was recorded live at our very first show ever.
Oh, wow.
And so it's a really special collection of songs that kind of, like I said, it's an audio scrapbook of what we've been through together the last 5 years, and we're very proud of it.
Right. So now a song like Ramblin' Man, right? So everybody knows that song was a huge hit in the early 70s, right? Do you feel any pressure when you're covering a song, I'll say, as iconic as something like that?
I think you should. I mean, I always feel pressure.
Okay.
There's pressure to excel, to do my job the best that I can do it. I thrive under pressure. And I think a lot of that comes from knowing, or hoping at least, that the original artists who are still alive anyway, are going to hear these versions of the songs. And you'd like for them to go, yeah, well done. You know, get a thumbs up. Of course, Ghost Riders in the Sky, the Outlaws cover, was produced by Henry Paul from the Outlaws. He came to Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and spent 3 days with us in the studio in 2015 to produce our version of Ghost Riders. And nobody on the planet has sung that song more than Henry Paul. I mean, he's a Southern rock legend. As the lead singer from the Outlaws, to sing the song to him and for him, with him in the studio with me, was a huge thrill. And talk about pressure. I mean,
absolutely.
But he was really pleased with what I was doing, and just said, "Man, it sounds great, Ronnie. Keep going." And you know, just the encouragement from Henry was a huge part of making that song come to life.
Absolutely. You know, to me, I love your version of the Blackfoot song Train Train. It's a great version, great song just to begin with, and you guys really knock it out of the park. It's a great way to start the album, the CD, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, there's not a better choice for an opening track on this record. We've been doing that song in the show since day one, and the train has been kind of a mascot of ours, so to speak. We have a drum riser on the stage that's built in the shape of a train that blows smoke, lights up, and that song's been part of our show since day one. And it's also one of the heavier tracks on the record, so that my hard rock and metal fans will hear that and realize that it's not such a stretch or a departure from my roots. We're still hitting it hard and heavy, and that's a very heavy song, and we crunched it up pretty well with the big guitars and the big drums on this record. I'm very proud of our version of that song. And the train's been a big part of the motif, like I said, since day one. So looking for an album cover for this project, I should have one here to show off. I didn't realize we were going to be on video, but I'm glad I put clothes on.
Me too.
I'm sure. But the new album cover is a train. And of course, I'm looking through thousands of images online of photographs, drawings, illustrations of trains, looking for the right album cover design. And I didn't find anything that I liked until I saw this video game from about 5 years ago. And I saw this iconic apocalyptic Mad Max kind of ghost train. And I tried to track down the artist who had done this painting, and I found him through filling out a form on a website. A few days later, he responded. Because he's not online. He doesn't have a Facebook page or an online gallery or anything. He's a very reclusive guy. Turns out he's in the south of France. His name is Kassor. And I reached out to him and said, you know, I want to use this train image for our album cover. And he said, Ron Keel, I'm a huge Keel fan. I grew up listening to your music. And, he just really was excited to be a part of the project. And turns out he's a Keel fan, so that helped.
That's awesome. That's very, very cool. That must have made you feel good when you're reaching out to somebody not knowing what their reaction is going to be. Turns out he's a fan.
Exactly. And he actually redid the cover in high res and did some different coloring to it and all that. So it's really a family effort between Kassor, the artist who did the cover, the guys in the band, and some of the session players, Derek Snow on harmonica, who did the intro to Train Train, Jasmine Kane, who did the duet on Don't Misunderstand Me, which is a feature duet track on
Yes,
this record.
Absolutely.
And the guys on the crew and our guitar players and everybody involved, the photographer, Chad Koppas, who did all the live photography and all the location photography for this project. You know, I was really apprehensive about releasing a new album at this time because of what everybody was going through, especially in March and April of this year. I knew the music was perfect for a summer soundtrack. It's great for partying, for drinking, for four-wheeling, for riding your motorcycle, grilling steaks on the barbecue. You know, this is a really good, solid summer party record. But I didn't realize, nobody could have realized or foreseen what we're all going through as a culture here in 2020 with COVID-19 and the civil unrest we're having in the States now and all that. So it was the toughest part of continuing with the plan to release the album on April 24th was how do we ask these people that so many of our friends and fans are out of a job or unemployed or short on cash. And it's very difficult for me to go online and promote the record and try and get them to shell out their hard-earned money and money they may not even have for it. So that was the toughest part of the decision. I knew the music was a perfect soundtrack for 2020. I did not know how perfect it was, because I do believe years from now we're going to listen to this record and look back on 2020, the year that was. And the two will go hand in hand, and to give people something positive, something fun, something they can enjoy. Absolutely. At a time like this. One reviewer called it comfort food for the ears, and I love that description. So we tried to make the package itself as valuable as possible, with a nice 8-panel fold out, and the fold out poster, and it's really a beautiful package.
Absolutely.
And tried to make that as economical as possible, with an introductory price of $14.98 for the autograph CD and the autograph poster and all that. So the response has been incredible, and we certainly thank everyone for embracing this music and shelling out that hard-earned money when they may not have as much to spend as we'd all hoped.
So, hearing you talk a little bit about releasing the album during this time and all the things that are going on here in America, the lead single, Red, White, and Blue, right? When I saw that as the lead single, I said, this has to be almost like a little acknowledgement of what we're going through as a country right now. Was that purposely chosen as a lead single because of all the things that you just outlined?
It was. When you get the record done and it's about to come out and you're trying to decide on what song is going to resonate the most with our audience and with people who may not even know who we are at this time, it felt like a perfect choice for the single. I felt like anything I can do to help unify people, and this was before the civil unrest. This was just the COVID-19. This was the warm-up act.
Yeah,
COVID-19.
exactly.
The pandemic was just the warm-up act, right?
So true.
So I thought, this is one way that we can show everyone that even though we're isolated and we're separate, we can stand united. And filming the video with that concept in mind was a huge challenge, very expensive, very time-consuming to have each band member shot at a different iconic location without anybody around. We were social distancing at the time, and to be able to capture that feeling of unity, having each band member at a separate location was certainly a challenge, but I think we pulled it off. And I went to Mount Rushmore, obviously, to film my segments of the video, and it was a beautiful spring day on a Saturday afternoon and in April. And normally on a day like that, it would be packed with people. I pulled up to Mount Rushmore, and there's no parking attendant. It's free to park. Just pull on in. And you walk in, there's no security, there's no the gift shop is closed, the museum is closed, it's just a ghost town. And I was able to literally have free reign of that location to film my footage. The same thing happened with the keyboard player who's at a park here in Sioux Falls, a place called Terrace Park, where we do an annual charity benefit for Jam Against Hunger, it's called. We'll play there again in August, and normally that park on a Saturday afternoon is going to be packed with families picnicking and kids on the playground. To go there on a beautiful spring day on a Saturday and be able to get behind the keyboard player with the camera and look out at this empty park, it's just it's very surreal, and we would have never been able to capture this footage if we hadn't been locked down or quarantined or whatever you want to call it at the time. So it enabled us to film a very special video clip, and I'm very proud of that piece. If you haven't seen it yet, it's at youtube.com/Ron Keel Official, and I'm very proud of that video and what it means to us, and hopefully what it means to all of our neighbors everywhere. And it's not just about America. There are a lot of flags that are red, white, blue. And it's a state of mind. It's an attitude. Absolutely. It's a way of life, and that the search for freedom or the desire to be free is strong within all of us, and that's what that song is all about.
Absolutely. And you touched on this. To me, I've watched the video a number of times, and I've seen other videos that were done during this quarantine, and they actually feel like they were filmed in a quarantine. This did not feel like that for me. You guys did an amazing job filming this, editing. I guess the whole essence of the song, the locations you guys were in, the way you edited it, I was like, you used the word unity, and that's the best word I could think of watching it. It really felt like I was being brought together with this video. It was an excellent job on it. And I'm not just saying that. I wouldn't say it if I don't feel like that.
I appreciate that. I'm very proud of it as well. Yeah. And the locations are great. We wanted to pay tribute to not only like the truck. Our bass player Gino Arce is on top of a Kenworth semi truck, and we wanted to use that location to pay tribute to the truckers who are the heroes, and they're one of many groups of heroes that are keeping all of us in business and keeping us alive out there on the highways and keeping the wheels turning, and no pun intended. So that's our way of paying tribute to the truckers. That A-17 fighter jet that you can see behind the drum set, very special location for us because our drummer, the Rev, Jeff Kohler, his father actually was in the Air National Guard, and he's the guy who towed that A-17 jet to that location back in the 70s.
That is cool.
So it was kind of like a way for him to pay tribute to his dad who served.
Sure. That's awesome.
Also to all of our military and first responders, and that jet, I think, symbolizes those who serve, our veterans, our military, our police, our first responders, and all that. Our way of saying thank you and recognizing their contribution. We could not do what we do if they didn't do what they did.
Absolutely. Before you mentioned a song on the CD with another person singing with you, Jasmine Kane, I'll be the first to admit I was not familiar with her background, although I looked it up after I heard the song. An amazing voice, an amazing song. Just talk a little bit about what her background is and what it was like to work with her.
Well, first of all, the song itself, Don't Misunderstand Me, is to me a very important piece of the Southern rock history. When Rossington Collins Band released that album, that was the first we had heard from the survivors of the Skinner plane crash. Gary Rossington, Alan Collins, Dale Krantz. It was after the Skinner plane crash that was so tragic and took Ronnie's life and so many others. And our first taste of Skinner after that was that Rossington Collins Band album. And that was one of the signature songs from that record. So I felt it had a very special place in the tapestry of Southern rock history.
Absolutely.
And of course, I love duets. I love working with other singers and being able to do a duet like that with someone like Jasmine Kane, who is South Dakota rock and roll. This chick, she was born in Sturgis, South Dakota, during the Sturgis Bike Rally.
Wow.
It doesn't get more South Dakota and more rock and roll than Jasmine Kane. We do a lot of shows together because we're both part of that biker band circuit. We did the Lone Star Rally in Galveston a couple of years back, and we did the Daytona gig, and we did Sturgis together last year. And Jasmine got up and sang "Don't Misunderstand Me" with us. This is before we recorded her vocal, and she is just an amazing person, a great spirit, rock and roll to the core, and she is South Dakota, so there's no better choice for that duet on Don't Misunderstand Me than Jasmine Kane and Ron Keel. We're hoping to hook up again at this year's Sturgis Rally, and 44 days from now, as we record this, 44 days until the rally begins, and hopefully we'll be able to perform. We're still not sure about the gigs or the timetable. We always play the rally. It's a big part of our year. It's kind of like our residency, where we go to one place for a week, and everybody from around the country comes to us. All the bikers, and it's just an amazing event to be a part of. And this is the 80th anniversary. So what we'd like to do this year is hopefully do some gigs with Jasmine Kane and record some of those shows for a live album as well. Ron Keel Band live at Sturgis. That's one of my goals, and we'll take it one day at a time. Who knows what's going to happen next week? Mike, it could be an asteroid. It could be an alien invasion. I mean, who knows?
At this point, anything is up for grabs, right?
Exactly. Who knows what? I mean, I don't know. We just got to enjoy life and enjoy music to the fullest, one day at a time, and hope for the best.
Now, did I see this right? Did you actually do a show this past weekend?
I did.
How'd that go?
Ron Keel Band. Oh, went great, man. It was an amazing event in Sioux City, Iowa. Outdoor biker type event. And we were not sure the gig was going to happen until a couple of weeks prior. We had an entire week of shows booked. We were supposed to be doing a festival date the night before up in Minnesota, which was canceled or postponed until next year. So we weren't sure this show was going to happen. And then the venue decided to forge ahead, and we were very happy about that. Of course, we had to get it in gear quickly. Get the guys together for rehearsal. We hadn't played in a long time. So we got together for rehearsals, and everybody did their homework, knocked off all the rust, and it just felt so good to be back out on stage. And I've got the best place in the entire at the entire venue. I mean, I've got this great band behind me, of guys that I love that are playing great music, and I can sing with them. And I've got the audience right in front of me.
Sure.
And obviously, they were hungry for live music and hungry to get out there and scream and make some noise and put their fists in the air and sing along. So it's a huge victory in a lot of ways. And I'm very thankful we had that opportunity. Hopefully, there'll be a lot more where that came from.
Absolutely. Now, was this the first show in that area, first live show of any band that you're aware of?
It was.
Very cool.
Well, it was our first show on U.S. soil this year.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I was lucky enough to get the Monsters of Rock cruise under my belt in February. And then I did the Australia tour in March. We did 5 shows in Australia, which was fantastic.
Sure.
Getting to knock that off my bucket list. I had never been to Australia, and the fans over there had been waiting for this as long as I had been waiting for it. 5 amazing shows in several cities in Australia. And then my wife came over to Australia for that.
Okay.
And then after the tour was over, then I had to go to work, man. You think the touring is a bitch. Just bring your wife along and have her stay after the tour. It's the restaurants and the walking and the beach, the zoo and the animal sanctuary and the road trips. And, man, she worked my ass off for a week after the tour was over with. And we barely made it home. Within a week or so of us getting home was the lockdown, travel ban, all that. So we were expecting to be home for a couple of months, releasing the new album and promoting it and doing interviews and hopefully writing some new songs and things like that. So I was thankful for the time at home, but now I'm ready to get back out there on the road. Looking forward to Sturgis. We're getting a lot of bookings coming in now.
Nice.
The calendar's getting full with shows in Ohio and Missouri. We've got Chicago, Detroit. A lot of big gigs that, but they're all with an asterisk. They're all if. They're all maybe. They're not tentative. I mean, they're locked down, but anything can happen. They could pull the plug a week before, especially with these indoor venues. Sure. Some of these venues are only allowed a partial capacity. Right. So that they can't, if you can't fill the venue, how is anybody supposed to make any money? Of course. How can we afford to go there and play, and how can they afford to pay us? And so it's a complicated landscape, which we have to navigate now in terms of bookings. But we're going to try and put as many shows on the calendar as we can this year. I'd hope to get to down to Texas again this winter, and then L.A., Vegas, Phoenix, and Florida, anywhere but South Dakota for the winter. But who knows, man? We'll take it one day at a time and hope for the best. Absolutely.
Now, one of the things that to me I find interesting when I listen to some of the newer material, the new album, if people only knew you from the 80s, the Keel, the Steeler time period, your voice, the way you sing now is a lot different, at least to my ear, and I'm no musician, but your voice sounds a lot different now than back then. You're not as metal, I guess is the best way for me to say it. Is that something purposely done on your side? Or am I just making stuff up and you're like, dude, you're nuts?
I do believe that it's changed, but I feel personally that it's gotten better.
I agree.
I have so much experience to draw from now, and I'm in good shape. I practice diligently and sing often, and I do believe I have a better tone, much better pitch and control than I had back in the 80s. Now, some of those super high piercing screams are no longer in my vocabulary, but what I lost at the very top of my range, most guys never had in the first place. Right, exactly. we're still able to pull off the Keel classics in the show. We do Speed Demon and Right to Rock, all the Keel hits like Because the Night, Tears of Fire, and it really depends on the song. I think you have to sell the tune as a singer. Your job is to sing it properly, and I want to be happy with what I'm hearing. With a project like South by South Dakota, it's challenging because I want to be proud of it and I want to enjoy it and be able to listen to it and go, yeah, I'm cool with that, and live with what I'm hearing. But also, you want the original artists, you want to do them proud. I recently did a Black Sabbath tribute album called Emerald Sabbath, on which I covered Ronnie James Dio, Ozzy, and Ian Gillan, all 3 iconic Black Sabbath singers. And so I think I sound pretty metal on that record. Agreed. And I think that Ronnie James Dio, who was a friend of mine, I think he would approve. I think he's listening, whether
I'm
he's
sure
in
he
heaven
would.
or hell. Whether he's in heaven or hell, I think he would approve of what I did on his
Agreed.
track "Die Young," which was a huge honor to cover Ronnie James Dio on
Sure.
that track. On South by South Dakota, yeah, some of the artists are still alive. You know, Skinner, obviously a big favorite of mine, and to record Red, White, and Blue, and hope that Johnny and Ricky and Gary hear that song and approve of my version. Yeah, there's that pressure as well as
Absolutely.
selling it to an audience that may never have heard the original versions.
Oh,
Because
absolutely.
a lot of our fans and listeners may not be familiar with Red, White, and Blue, even though it was a top 30 hit for Skinner in 2003. It's still, like I said, it's not Give Me Three Steps or Sweet Home Alabama.
Absolutely.
And you want to do justice to the song. You want to do it so where the original artist would approve. And you also want to sell it to the fans who are maybe hearing it for the first time. So there's a triple threat of pressure on doing a covers album like this. So I'm really proud of the results, and I hope that the fans and the original artists would approve.
Yeah, I'm sure they will. And, you know, just for point of clarification here, I agree with you 1,000%. Your voice to me has gotten better with age, which to me, you know, the voice is a muscle, and you see a lot of these singers from the 80s and the 70s, they've lost a lot, unfortunately.
Yeah.
You've gotten better with age, and there's like I think of Sammy Hagar, who's just as good now as he was back then, amazing.
Yeah.
And somehow, how have you been able to, I'll say, retain that voice and get better with age as opposed to losing some of it?
Well,
besides that really high thing, like you said, right?
Some of those really stupid piercing high screams, I don't know where they came from, and I don't know where they went. I'm glad that I had them for a while. But guys like Sammy Hagar, like you mentioned, I draw huge inspiration from Sammy, Steven Tyler,
Sure.
Rob Halford, still doing a great job vocally at an advanced age.
Absolutely.
And I do believe that it's a combination of heart and mind, because you've got to really want to sound good. You've got to really work at it. You've got to really care about your tone and how you sound. You've got to really want to deliver the goods. Plus, for me, it's practice. It's muscle memory. It is a muscle, like you said.
Yeah.
I do sing often, every day. I am rehearsing. I'll take 2 or 3 hours out of my day, shut the phone off, shut the computer off, and I'll practice. I'll sing. I warm up properly. I'm working out at the gym every morning for an hour, and I try and stay healthy, which is a big part of it. Physically, you got to be healthy. But so much of it is the heart and the mind, and where the heart leads, the voice will follow. You really got to want to kick ass. You've got to want it, and you've got to push. You got to work hard, and you've got to be able to adapt to how your voice changes as you age,
Sure.
and how it changes day to day with how much sleep you had, what you had to eat, how many of these interviews that you do, you're talking all day long. So I mean, you're dealing with a different set of circumstances every time you open up your mouth. And I went through that during the recording sessions because I was hosting a daily radio show at the time. I was on the air for 4 hours, and a lot of interaction, not only on the phone lines, talking to the listeners and talking between songs, and you're building up your energy, doing that daily radio gig 2 to 4.
Sure.
And even back to the Metal Cowboy record, when I went in after a gig to do the rhythm guitar parts on the first couple of songs on the Metal Cowboy release in 2014. And I went in we've got the drums done. I'm going to start with the rhythm guitars tonight. And I did the rhythm guitars. And I thought, well, let's just lay down a vocal while I'm here, just for reference, like a guide vocal or a scratch vocal, they call it. And I laid the vocal down on Wild Forever that night. And it was great. And we kept it. That vocal that you hear on the track is the same vocal. I did that after a gig.
Wow.
So doing the vocals after a radio show was a challenge.
Sure.
And I'm a morning singer. I like to do it in the morning. I like to get up, have my coffee, my workout, my breakfast, and then about 10 a.m., man, I'm ready to carve tracks. That's my perfect start time. Before I start talking, before I lose all my energy and I'm pouring my heart on interviews or on the radio. I love to sing in the morning. So I have a system down, a lot of experience. I've been doing it a long time, and I really care about the quality of my work.
Right. No, and it shows to me. So before you mentioned, I'm just going to dip back in the past a little bit here. Before you mentioned the couple of Sabbath songs that you covered, and I'll say for the longest time, I didn't realize this, and I think others didn't as well. you were actually in Black Sabbath for a short period of time, right?
Very short period of time, but an amazing experience, obviously, and something that I still have to talk about, or I get to talk about
absolutely.
in interviews, and that I was able to parlay that brief encounter with Black Sabbath into this appearance on the Emerald Sabbath tribute record,
Sure.
which is a collection of ex-Sabbath alumni, Dave Walker and Bev Bevan and some ex-Sabbath members. Vinny Appice did the drum tracks on Die Young. I mean, I get to record Die Young with the guy who did it originally on the Heaven and Hell record.
Right.
Rudy Sarzo did the bass tracks, obviously a longtime Ozzy alumni.
Absolutely.
So to be involved in that project, that's directly a result of my relationship with the Black Sabbath history. I was in the band for a very short time in the spring of 1984 and never did get to record or tour with them, but to have Tony Iommi hand me a song list and say, learn these are the songs for the next tour. And three of those songs that Tony gave me on that list were the songs I did on the Emerald Sabbath project. Trashed, the Ian Gillan track, Hole in the Sky, the Ozzy track, excuse me, and Die Young from Dio. So it's an amazing experience. It didn't work out, and there's certain reasons why. Tony and Geezer came to see that first Keel show.
Oh, really?
They were Tony and Geezer. We obviously that was April 7th, 1984. It was supposed to be our first and only show because after this gig, I'm going off with Sabbath. There was nothing else.
Okay.
Tony and Geezer came to the gig, and I believe that they saw Ron Keel, the real me. And there's a lot of smiles, a lot of high fives, a lot of fist pumping metal anthems. It wasn't as dark, I think, as what they needed for Black Sabbath. Although I certainly felt I would have been good in that role, following Ozzy and Dio and Ian Gillan. I had these songs. I was ready to go, and I was ready to dress in black with the upside down cross and the whole deal. I was excited about the gig, but I didn't do the Black Sabbath gig with Keel because that's not what Keel was all about. Right. So I think Tony and Geezer saw something there, and they weren't sure if I was the right guy or not. And their relationship with the producer, Spencer Propper, imploded at the same time. Spencer was trying to turn them into a hair metal band and push outside material on them, and I kind of got lost in the crossfire when they fired Spencer Propper, who produced that Quiet Riot record, and was producing the Sabbath record, but he never did. That never did materialize, and life goes on. It's still an amazing part of my life and my history, and it enables me to do the Emerald Sabbath project and do some Black Sabbath songs in the Ron Keel band show as well.
That's cool. Now, for your own collection or whatever, do you have at least an audio tape of a rehearsal with the guys just for you to go back and listen to, or is it just now all memories for you?
It's just memories, and a lot of it was just business. A lot of it was meeting with Don Arden, Sharon Osbourne's father. I remember Tony and Geezer taking me to meet Don Arden as my new manager, and he was a pretty intimidating guy. Kind of sent me down, read me the lay of the land and the rules of the road, so to speak. And but really, all that Tony and Geezer wanted at that time, they just wanted Ozzy back. They would sit around. Man, we really need to get Ozzy back. Well, guys, it's going to be all right. It's going to be all right. You'll be fine, trust me. They really just wanted Ozzy back, and I'm glad that they were able to come full circle with Ronnie James Dio and do the Heaven and Hell project. What some great music and some great shows at the tail end of Ronnie's career. So all's well that ends well, and everything happens the way it's supposed to.
And I think it worked out for everybody, right? Because like you just said, so you actually went on and did the Keel band, right? And had good success with that all through the 80s. So
yeah, it did. And I'm not one of those guys who looks back too much. I'll reflect in an interview like this if the question comes up. But man, I'm always facing forward. I'm always looking forward to the next adventure, the next challenge, the next song, the next gig, the next opportunity. So everything that's happened to me in the past has made me who I am, and I'm comfortable in my own skin, and I'm comfortable where I'm at in life and as a human being and as a musician.
That's awesome. That's awesome to hear. So saying all that, and you can see on the stuff on the back of the wall here, I'm a big Kiss fan. I'll say Ron Keel came into my view in the mid-'80s, also when you started working with Gene Simmons, right? Second album. How did you meet Gene, and how did that connection start?
When we got signed to our major label recording contract with Gold Mountain A&M Records in the fall of '84, August of '84, the record company presented me with a list of potential producers, a sheet of paper basically with everybody's name on it, man. It was the A-list, Michael Wagner and Max Norman and, you know, all these hot cats, Tom Werman, and, yeah, just the list, the Hall of Fame.
The who's who, right? The who's who of rock producers. Yeah.
And Gene Simmons' name was on the list.
Okay.
And I just gravitated to Gene's name, and I said, Gene, that's who I want. And at the time, it was not a business decision for me. It was purely motivated by the fact that, first of all, I'm a huge Kiss fan. It's the first concert I ever went to. They were a huge influence on my teenage years. And the fact that Gene was a singer, performer, a musician, an artist, as opposed to a producer like all these other guys on the list, I thought maybe we could relate as, you know, because I wanted to be what he was. I wanted to be a rock star like Gene. I thought and we did. We related really well, and we hooked up that first meeting, and it was off to the races after I sang The Right to Rock for him, and he said, I'm going to produce this record. And then he became my friend, my mentor, and produced those next two Keel albums, The Right to Rock and The Final Frontier, and was a huge influence on my life as a person, a businessman, a producer. I still produce sessions very much like Gene taught me to do it back in the 80s. And in terms of the preparation that you do going into the session, but also the freedom or the recklessness, or I don't know what the word is, but don't be afraid to try anything. Just experimenting after you have your solid game plan in place. And Gene would insert a bridge into a song that we had never rehearsed, or he said, let's just put this breakdown in here, give me this kick pattern, and let's just try anything and see if it works. And how the kick drum works with the bass guitar patterns, really super important. I would have never, I don't know if I would have ever thought of that on my own, but Gene was big on how the bass drum works with the bass guitar. I can't see my foot and stuff.
But I hear it.
But how those bass patterns work together with the kick drum and the bass guitar, absolutely incredible lessons like that. How to structure and stack these big, huge anthem harmonies like Kiss did or Ron Keel did. Songwriting, so many lessons that Gene taught me during those 2 years that we worked together have stayed with me. He's still the little demon on my shoulder at every session that I do.
Oh, wow. So, you know, a lot of people know his public persona, which is, you know, he could be a little abrasive. He could be, you know, a showboat or whatever. But everybody who knows him behind the scenes says super nice guy. He would give you the shirt off of his back. Yeah. Well, so it sounds like for you had a great working experience with him during those couple of years.
And yeah, he's a superhuman being. So much of what we did outside of the sessions was sitting around talking about music. You know, Gene, outside of the money and the makeup and the hype and all that, he really is, you know, he loves music. He loves rock and roll, and he's got an extreme appreciation and knowledge of rock and roll history. And we would listen to records. You know, we talk about the roots and the songs and where it all came from with bands like Mountain and the Stones and the Beatles and the Who, and the bands that influenced him. And from a fun standpoint, we'd watch movies. He'd take us up to his apartment there overlooking Central Park. We'd sit around Gene's pad. We'd eat popcorn and watch movies in his little home theater with Shannon Tweed. Shannon would cook for us. I mean, that was an amazing friendship, as well as the business, marketing, merchandising, money. He taught me a lot, man. There's a reason why you go to the Ron Keel store at ronkeel.com and you can buy dog tags and shot glasses and shirts. And I learned a lot about that merchandising thing and branding. From Gene. Yes. So very thankful for that relationship. And, you know, I didn't realize it at the time, but it was a brilliant business move for me because the Kiss Army, as you said, that was the first time I came on your radar. The Kiss Army embraced Keel because Gene embraced Keel. Right. And they bought that record, The Right to Rock, the week it came out, January of '85. We sold 90,000 records the first week, and it put us on the map.
Right.
And I give the credit to, first, it was a great song. The Right to Rock is a
Yep.
classic all-time rock anthem.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, you got a great iconic album cover, which went a long way back in the day. I mean, you look at
Yes.
that album cover,
Agreed.
you know, I mean, that's a very special piece of artwork.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that MTV was playing the video was a huge bonus and a plus.
Sure.
But the fact that Gene's name was on that record, I give that number one priority. The reason that it was so successful is because he produced it. The Kiss fans bought it because Gene bought it.
Right. But, you know, that only gets you a foot in the door, as I like to say. You know, so his name was there as the producer. It caught my ear. But if the songs weren't there, it would be, all right, and you toss the record to the side and never think about it again. You know, so you had to have the song still. So on that album that Gene produced, I think you had actually brought a couple of songs from your first album and put them on the second album. And then Gene had a couple of co-writes on that album as well. So who was making those decisions to say, hey, let's bring a couple of the older songs from the first album? And why did that work out that way?
Here's how it happened, Mike. We were still recording Late on the Law, our original first independent record.
Yep.
We were still in the studio finishing those mixes when I met Gene. So that album wasn't even finished yet.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm.
And the only song we had was a jam of this 3-chord rock tune that we had played when we were setting up, kind of like South by South Dakota.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
We got all the instruments set up and ready to go, and I told the guys, just jam something so I can get levels. I'm in the control room. I'm producing the record myself, and Mark Ferrari starts into that riff. Gah, 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 and the guys in the band start jamming along. They start jamming. And I roll tape. I hit record and play right then and there.
Okay.
And I captured that jam. And that's all we had.
Okay.
Because we didn't have any new songs. We're still in the studio making our debut record.
Sure.
And so when I met with Gene, that's the one song we had.
Mm-hmm.
I sang it to him. And there was no vocal on the cassette. I played a cassette in his boombox and sang, spitting in his face. You know, sang the Right to Rock. And he made the commitment right then and there. He's going to produce this record.
Right.
And we're going to start Tuesday because he's getting ready to go on tour with Kiss. It was the Asylum tour, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's getting ready to go on tour with Kiss. If we're going to do this, we got to do it now because Gene's leaving.
Right.
And the ink wasn't even dry on the recording contract. We didn't have anything. We just signed a deal. We had no songs.
Mm-hmm.
So, inspired by this, I went home and I wrote Electric Love and Back to the City that night.
Okay.
Nice. So I wrote 2 songs the same night.
Wow. Okay.
So now we had 3 new songs.
Okay.
That's all we're going to get. You're going to get 2 songs out of me in one night. That's all you're going to get. And so we had those 3 new songs, and then we had. Gene said, "Well, I'll give you 3 songs." You know, he gave me a tape and told me to pick my 3 favorites.
Okay.
So Easier Said Than Done, which was called Sooner Said Than Done on the Gene Simmons demo.
Okay.
So Many Girls, So Little Time, and Get Down. So we chose those 3 Gene Simmons songs, and then we chose 3 songs from Late on the Law: Speed Demon, the Rolling Stones cover, Let's Spend the Night Together, and You're the Victim, I'm the Crime.
Right.
So we redid 3 songs, did our 3 new songs, did 3 of Gene's songs, and okay, we've got enough for an album. And we were in the studio the next week tracking because Gene had to go on tour with Kiss.
Sure.
And even still, we didn't finish the record before the tour started. So we would stay in New York, and we would hang out for a few days on the company dime, you know, ordered room service. Room service! Oh, yes. And while Gene's away on tour with Kiss, we were living it up in New York, running up a hell of a room service tab, and then Gene would fly back for a day off. He'd talk about the hardest working guy in show business.
Absolutely.
He'd fly in on a day off, and we would work in the studio on that day. And he would even sometimes work in the morning with us and then fly out to a Kiss gig that night.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So we finished the record, and then that's how it had to happen. We were signed in August. I met Gene, and the following January, the album came out, and the rest is history.
That's quick. Now, the song Speed Demon years later was used in, I think, Men in Black 2 movie, if I'm not mistaken, right?
It's correct. Yes, a famous scene, the mailroom scene from Men in Black 2. And it's cool how when you grow up, well, you meet people that listened to your music when they were kids, and the producer of the movie was a Keel fan.
Okay.
And, you know, he's producing the movie. I want to use a Keel song in this. And they're famous athletes or comedians, you know, that grew up listening to your stuff, and now they're big time, and you have those friendships because they listen to my music when I was a kid. Randy Johnson, the big unit, the Major League Baseball Hall of Famer, Keel fan.
Oh, wow, okay.
Carrot Top. Carrot Top, the comedian in Vegas.
Oh, wow, okay.
Amazing comedian, great guy. And, I moved to Vegas in 2006, 2007. Carrot Top reached out to me, says, "Hey, man, I heard you're in town. I'm a huge fan. Come to the show." And Carrot Top and I became friends through that. So I guess the producer of Men in Black 2 was a Keel fan. And you just never know what's going to happen. It continues to pay dividends. And we continue to license those songs to TV and films and ad campaigns and things like that, which are really helpful.
Absolutely.
So I appreciate those opportunities and the fact that some of my fans have grown up to be quite successful. I appreciate that.
Without a doubt. So, before you mentioned some of the artists earlier on in this conversation that you've toured with, I'm trying to remember some of them. I think it was Motley Crue that you toured with, Bon Jovi. I think I saw you open for Bon Jovi at Madison Square Garden, if I remember right.
Yeah, so Madison Square Garden, 3 nights in a row, sold out, man. What an amazing, that's like, of course, every musician's dream to play the Garden. And to play there for 3 nights in a row, sold out, with Bon Jovi on the Super When Wet tour. Doesn't get any better than that.
Yep. Yeah, I was trying to remember. At first, I was like, I think I saw Keel with Kiss. And I'm like, no, they never toured together. And I was like, where was that? And I was like, Bon Jovi, August of '87, Madison Square Garden. So what memories do you have of touring with those? Because you guys toured with a lot of different bands during that time period. A lot of great bands.
Well, there are a lot of great memories. And what I was most proud of, I think, of course, you celebrate those huge victories like the Texas Jam at the Cotton Bowl in '86 with Van Halen. Sammy Hagar, my idol, my all-time favorite frontman, and being able to open for Van Hagar at the Cotton Bowl in front of 86,000 people. They say there were 70,000, 80,000. I was told that day 86,000 people. Of course, half of them dropped from heat stroke that day, but boy, 110, in the shade there in Dallas, Texas, at the Cotton Bowl. What a great memory. Opening for Aerosmith on the Done with Mirrors tour when they reunited with Joe Perry and Brad Whitford, and they came back to do their big stadium show at Sullivan Stadium in Foxborough, Massachusetts, right outside of Boston, which is their home turf. So to be opening for Aerosmith on their reunion show in a stadium gig on their home turf outside of Boston, it doesn't get any better than that. Absolutely. The Bon Jovi tour was incredible because I'm a huge fan of Bon Jovi, and the shows were sold out, and we were just really living the dream at that time. Of course, you go into Madison Square Garden, which is, like I said, every kid's dream to play at the Garden, and you walk in that building for the first gig, night number 1, and it's very overwhelming, and you feel the butterflies and the pressure, and I can feel it now, the back of my neck, the skin, I can feel that all over again, and you're really it's nerves. So you get done with that gig, and the second day you walk in, you go, oh, it's night number 2 at the Garden. You go, oh, that's pretty cool. And you're much more comfortable. Night number 2 was great. And then by the third night in a row, you're just walking into the Garden like you're the house band, right? I'm skateboarding down the hallway, high-fiving the security guards, walking in, hey, John, what are you eating tonight? We're going to have dinner,
that's
backstage catering with Bon Jovi. So each night it got much more comfortable. By the third night, it was like we're the house band at the Garden.
That's hilarious. And now, when you played with Aerosmith, am I right in saying that Yngwie Malmsteen did some of those shows with you guys as well?
Yngwie was the middle act. He was.
Right now, and he
and
played.
That's cool,
Right, I was gonna say.
I got to play and sing, and I don't mind. Doesn't matter where I am on the bill as long as I get to be on the stage.
Absolutely. Now, and for fans, I'm sure most of them realize you actually were in a band with Yngwie for a brief period of time, actually right before Keel, right, Steeler?
Really?
No?
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, who's going to blink first here?
Of course. Yeah, really. Who's going to blink first? Yeah, that Steeler record from '83 was obviously the album that got both of our careers started.
Right.
And one of those foundation albums of '80s metal. At one point, it was the biggest selling independent metal record of all time. Really put Yngwie and Ron Keel on the map, so I'm very thankful for that. And that has a very special place in metal history and in the hearts and the ears of all the fans that bought it and continue to enjoy it to this day.
Absolutely. So, you mentioned before Kiss was your first concert. Just out of curiosity, what tour?
It was the Love Gun tour.
Oh, I'm jealous. Damn, I'm jealous.
Tarrant County Convention Center, Fort Worth. I got my ass chewed for this the other day. I said it was Dallas. I mean, you can't. What is it with Dallas, Fort Worth, man?
Yeah, right.
I did this when you play in Dallas or you play in Fort Worth, you better know which town you're playing in, because
Okay.
you don't want to say the wrong thing on stage. I did it one time. Good evening, Dallas.
Yeah,
It's Fort Worth, asshole.
Oh, no.
Same thing happened in an interview with Mike Randvold,
Uh-huh.
on Three Sides of the Coin last week. I said, it was, Dallas. I don't remember. I'm not a geographer,
Right.
for God's sake.
Right.
I don't know. It's like somewhere in Texas, all right? Terry County Convention Center, the Love Gun Tour, and Styx was the opening act. I couldn't go to a concert until I could drive myself. My parents would not drive me to a concert unless it was one of my own.
Okay.
I was doing my own concerts at the age of 13, 14 years old.
Oh, wow.
But I was not allowed to go to an arena show until I could drive myself. So I got my first driver's license in my car at the age of 16, and the first concert I went to was Kiss. Nice. Of course.
Was that with Cheap Trick?
It was Styx.
Styx. Oh, nice. Oh, yes, that's right. Styx's. Yep. Absolutely.
I was, I was still big at the time. Even when I was 16, I was 6'4". I was a tall guy. I had a couple of guys on the football team with me who were the drummer from my band was a star football player and athlete at the school. So we had some big dudes. All right.
Right.
We fought our way to the front. It's general admission, of course. So we fought our way all the way to the front and center, right in front of Paul and Gene. And I'm getting, I could feel the heat of the flames when he breathed fire. He's spitting blood all over me. And it was an amazing experience. And then 7 years later, I'm sitting in a hotel room with him,
right.
and I'm spitting all over him, giving the right to rock. And then, a couple of weeks later, we're in the studio side by side, working on the Right to Rock album. What a hell of a ride it has been. It was an amazing time in my life, and I'm still enjoying every minute of this journey.
Well, to me, one of the things that comes through when you talk is that you worked hard for this. You still work hard for this. And when you work hard, good things happen to good people, hopefully, right? And that's what it sounds like happening in this case.
You got to work hard. I mean, that's just part of, to me, I think, if you're doing any job, whatever your job is, and my job, so to speak, or my work is being an entertainer. And I believe that my father taught me that work ethic at a very young age. You're going to go to work, you're going to be the first guy on the job, you're going to bust your ass until you can't move, and then you're going to be the last guy to leave. Also, you got to want it. You got to want it more than anybody else wants it. I was looking at my first album the other day, and it was a Battle of the Bands competition from 1980 with a band called Lost in Nashville. Okay. And out of the 5 guys in that band, I was the least talented. There's no dispute. The drummer, the bass player, and both guitar players were absolute big-time potential. I was the guy who had no talent, and I'm the guy that made it. That's because I wanted it more than they wanted it. And they'll tell you that right now. I still talk to some of those guys.
Okay.
And I wanted it, and I still want it. I want it badly. I want to succeed. I want to be proud of my work at the end of every day. I want to go to bed knowing that I lived my life to the fullest today. I had a great day, and I'm going to wake up tomorrow morning, and the first thing I'm going to say to myself is, I'm going to have a great day, and today I'm going to be productive. Today I'm going to kick ass. And it's a choice. You wake up every morning with that choice to be who you want to be. And I've created my own work ethic and my own persona, and that's how I like to roll. It's exhausting, but it's very rewarding at the same time. And I love what I do, and I'm not happy unless I'm working. My wife will tell you, that 10 hours from now, I'll be in bed with this laptop, the same laptop that we're talking on now. I'll be in bed with the laptop, and when I can't keep my eyes open anymore, I'll put the laptop down. She'll say goodnight, and we'll wake up tomorrow and do it all over again. And probably pick up the guitar in the morning and go till I can't. That's just to me, it's fun, it's rewarding, and it's how you succeed, man. You've got to want it more than the next guy, or that guy's gonna. It's just the way I was raised and the way I feel about life. I'm not the most talented guy in the band, but I'm the guy who wants it the most.
So you said your father installed that in you at a young age. Was your parents supportive of your decision to pursue music and rock and roll?
Not at first. No, they thought they tried to. They were encouraging in some ways. They would buy me an instrument. Like my dad would buy me a guitar and then ground me. You can't. He didn't want me to, because he was a musician too, and he gave it up to be a construction worker. And he was of the belief that, he told me this, those people on TV, those people on the record player, those are stars.
Hmm.
You ain't a star. You can't be like that.
Hmm.
And he told me I couldn't. They kept telling me I couldn't do it. It's not possible. You can't do this. And it gave me the inspiration to all the more to prove them wrong and to prove everybody around me wrong. Everybody said, you can't do that. You're never going to make it. You suck. Whatever. It gave me the motivation to do that. And when I left home at 16 to go on the road with a rock band, and then I dropped out of high school, they gave up. So it's done. That's too bad. They just wrote me off. I'm done. They're done because it's not going to happen. And then a few years later, I had this band called Keel. It happened to be that was their last name too, right? It's pretty cool. He's like his name's and he's in the magazines, and my dad thought we named the band after him. All of a sudden, he's my biggest fan. He called me. Hey, Ron, Kiss is coming to town. Can you hook me up? Call Gene, hook me up with a couple of My dad, I called Gene. Hey, Gene, my dad wants to come see you. Gene would have my dad come backstage.
Oh, wow.
My dad had he had his second childhood, and I was his dad all of a sudden. He's got the groupies, and he's getting busted and pulled over and thrown in jail. He's got chicks in the car. I'm bailing my dad out of jail. So I'm his dad. So at the end, he was very supportive. They became my biggest fans, but I had to prove it to him. I had to prove it to him that I was right and that I can make it. I can succeed in this business, and I'm not going to stop until I do. And so I proved it to them. They were very proud of the fact that I stuck to my guns.
That's so awesome. So as a kid, we've spoke about all different types of Southern rock, classic rock, 80s rock, and it seems like you're a fan of all of them. As a kid, what was in your record collection?
I'm sorry, the headphones became unplugged.
Nope,
I got a bad jack here. What was that question again?
Yeah, I said, so, we spoke about Southern rock, classic rock, 80s rock. You seem to be a fan of all of it. Growing up as a kid, what was in your record collection?
Well, it started with the top 30 because you could buy the 45 singles. For about, I think they were about $1 a piece.
Yeah, I still got about 100 of them in the closet here.
And I would go into Kmart, was the store at the time. I would walk to Kmart, and I took $30 that I'd made on a construction job with my dad, and I bought the top 30, whatever the top 30 was. And at the time, there was a lot of Motown going on in the early 70s. There was pop music. There was some Southern rock, Atlanta Rhythm Section. There was some Skinner going on, Eagles, stuff like that. And then the next week, I would go back to Kmart each week when they got the top 30, and there's certain songs that had been added to the top 30 charts. And I would so now I'd only got to spend $2 or $3 to get the ones I don't have. So each week I would buy the 45s in the top 30 that I didn't already have. And I would go home and I'd learn those songs, sing along with them, play along with those. But then when I started playing guitar and writing songs of my own, the bands that I gravitated to were the bands that I could actually play some of their songs at my talent level. Kiss, AC/DC. You could play Deuce and Strutter, and you could play TNT and Long Way to the Top, Rock and Roll. And some of those AC/DC and Kiss were big influences on me as I learned to play guitar and sing and write. And I love that simple primal approach that those bands had. As the 70s progressed and I became an album buyer, I remember some of the albums that really did hard time on my turntable were Judas Priest, Hellbent for Leather, the first Van Halen record, the first couple of Van Halen records, I wore them out. Skinner, One More from the Road, the live album. Of course, you can only afford one album. You're going to get the live album or the greatest hits. Black Sabbath's collection. We Sold Our Soul for Rock and Roll was that was my Sabbath Bible. Bob Seger, Live Bullet, Bob Seger and the Silver Bullet Band. That was a huge one. I still play that record now. Nice. I've got a different copy now, but I still play the same records on my turntable. I remember, I know that Judas Priest, Hellbent for Leather, and Skinner's One More for the Road spent a lot of time side by side. One would drop, and then the next one would on top of it. So those were the records that I gravitated to in the late 70s as I became a true rocker and was drawn to the excitement, the energy, the electricity. When we went to L.A. with Steeler, we moved there from Nashville in 1980.
Who? Steeler? You were in Steeler? You were in Steeler? Yeah. Sorry, I had to get you back. Yeah. Go ahead. Okay.
I think we only had 3 or 4 records. We had Priest, Screaming for Vengeance, Scorpions, Blackout, and Iron Maiden, Number of the Beast. And we were just cycled those 3 albums in rotation. I think that was the only records we had. And we couldn't afford to buy new ones at that time because we were struggling to make it on the Hollywood scene. And literally going through all those horror stories that you hear artists talk about.
Sure.
You make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and you cut it in 4 pieces, and each band member gets a quarter of the sandwich, and that's what you're going to eat that day.
Right.
We went through all that and more. So, but those are the times that make us who we are, and now I think it's why I have an eating disorder to this day, because I don't like going to bed hungry, man. I did it too many times back.
Me neither. So I picked up on one thing though. You said it sounds like you still play records. So are you a vinyl guy?
Absolutely.
Nice, very nice.
And what's cool is we had a flood in my basement where I'm sitting right now.
Okay.
This is the man cave. This is my studio, and I've got a performance area out there on the other side of the wall where the band can rehearse and
nice.
perform, and I've got storage areas. But we had a big flood here last year. Now I had to redo the entire basement and put it, because you don't want to hear about my construction woes, but we're high and dry now, brother.
Nice. Okay, good.
No more of that flood stuff. But last year we had a foot of water down here, and I lost my vinyl collection. Even the stuff that I had recorded myself, even my own personal Keel vinyl and stuff. And when I posted about that on Facebook or social media and let the fans know, I wasn't asking for it, but they came and they all pitched in. Bands from all over the country have pitched in and replenished my vinyl collection. Now I've got all of my records back, and records that I had when I was a kid, and records that I always wished I could have had I never had. So, and the fans, literally last week, there's a girl in Florida, her name's Roxy. Love me some Roxy. She's awesome. And she was going through her record collection and just put a bunch in a box and sent them to me. And so the fans literally have rebuilt my vinyl collection for me. And they know that I'm a fan of that. I love that scratch.
Yeah, there's nothing like that sound.
At the end of the record, my turntable does it. It kind of takes me back to my childhood. Nothing's, it's not perfect, but it feels good, sounds good, man.
Absolutely. So a couple of last questions, then I'll let you go. You mentioned your wife a couple of times. I know you she wrote a book that you sell on your website. She's a cancer survivor. First and foremost, how is she doing? Is she okay these days?
She is doing great, better than okay. She's healthy. Her story had a happy ending, and we're very thankful for that. She was able to capture that story in book form, as you mentioned, with a book called Anything But Pink on becoming a cancer survivor. And we co-wrote the book together. She did the heavy lifting, and then I added at the end of each chapter what I was going through from a husband's perspective. Because the first thing that happened when she got diagnosed, first thing I did was I need to learn. I got to find some books about this. How do I handle this? I need help. So I went on Amazon or eBay or Barnes and Noble and tried to collect as many books on the subject as I could. And I think her book has been a great source of inspiration to a lot of people. You never really want a book like that until you get diagnosed. But her book also it's a story of inspiration no matter what kind of adversity or problems you might be going through, because her entire motto is to choose happy. She's taught me, like I said, it's a choice. Every day when you wake up, today I'm going to be happy, I'm going to work hard, I'm going to smile, I'm going to laugh, I'm going to live. And she taught me that philosophy, and she really embodies that in every word of her book. She went through chemotherapy, radiation, 9 surgical procedures, and it was a long, tough battle, but I'm really proud of her and her ability to convey that story so eloquently in her book, and I highly recommend it for anybody who is going through that type of obstacle or trauma or whatever you want to call it in life, medical or otherwise. You can find that book at her website, reneekeel.com, or on my website, ronkeel.com.
Yeah, and I think you touched on an important thing there, like at the end of each chapter, how you kind of gave your point of view as the spouse, watching your wife go through that, because obviously it's horrible, anybody like your wife going through that, but it affects everybody around them, such as in this case yourself as a husband. So like you said, if anybody who's going through something, I think the book would be inspirational to the person going through it, or even the person supporting the person going through that. So you said your wife's site, your site is where you can get the book, correct?
That's right. And I had to immediately, when she got the diagnosis, it changes everything. And it changes everything for good. But that day, you realize that I can't go on tour anymore. I can't leave home. I'm going to have to stay here with her. This is when we just rebranded this thing as the Ron Keel Band, and we were off and running. I just purchased a truck and an RV, and we were spending a lot of energy, money, and time rebranding the band as the Ron Keel Band. And I knew I had to find a way to continue doing what I do and what I love from home. So I embraced a platform called Patreon, which is a way to entertain people online. So literally, Mike, at that point, we were under quarantine. I mean, when this COVID-19 crap hit, we already had a cabinet full of surgical masks. We already were used to keeping everything clean and wiping down the doorknobs and the remote controls and the light switches. You don't want them to they have a very weak immune system and very prone to infection. So we had already gone through that, and I had to figure out a way to entertain people from home. So I built this site. It's called patreon.com/Ron Keel, where I have a huge group of Keelaholics now. They're subscribers. It's kind of like Netflix. You pay a monthly fee, and you get all the cool stuff, free music downloads, live interaction, live online concerts, my audio book, and so much more. And so it enabled me to work from home and to entertain people online, and certainly prepared me for what we've been through this year. So I encourage people to check that out on Patreon at Ron Keel. So thanks for letting me plug the book and my Patreon site all in one fell swoop.
There you go. And don't you also do personal videos for people as well?
I do, just like the Cameo thing, only I don't do Cameo. You can go to my store and order a happy birthday or happy anniversary message or whatever you want, personal message from Ron Keel. It's just another service that I offer on the in the store at ronkeel.com.
Okay, excellent. And then let's close where we started, right? So the new album, the new CD, South by South Dakota, you can pick it up on the website, and if I understand properly, I think there's signed copies there also, and you're not reaming people $100 for a signed thing. I think it's like $14, $15. Please, if I'm wrong, don't get mad, but I think it's like $15 for a signed CD, right?
Yeah, we ran it, literally sold out of all these fan pack bundles with the T-shirts, and we'll get more shirts and shot glasses and all that stuff. But right now, the basic bundle is an autographed CD, and there's two autographs. One, there's a fold-out poster on the package as well. So I autographed the front of the CD, I autographed the poster, and it comes with a free sticker. That's $15.98 in the online store at ronkeel.com.
You can't beat that. $15.98. You get a great CD. It's autographed. I highly recommend everybody go check it out, purchase it. Ron, this has been a lot of fun for me, a great conversation. Was there anything I didn't cover or ask you that you're like, hey, I want my fans to know this?
No, I just wanted to know that they can find me at ronkeel.com. Everybody's got a million different social media platforms, and we love Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all that stuff. At YouTube, the YouTube channel, you can find all that stuff in one stop at ronkeel.com. I wonder what everybody's going to do when Facebook ends up doing what MySpace did. Because where are you going to go? It's just going to happen, man. But ronkeel.com's been there 20 years. It's going to be there another 20 years.
That's awesome. Well, Ron, thanks for your time today. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Continued health, stay safe, and hope to see you on the road much sooner rather than later.
You too, Mike. Thanks for the opportunity. Great talking to you, man.
Likewise. Thanks a lot, Ron. Take it easy.
Got it.
All right. Bye-bye. All righty. There you have it. I'd like to take a moment and thank Ron for spending over an hour with me. I had a lot of fun. I hope you guys enjoyed watching and listening to that as much as I enjoyed talking with Ron. Head on over to his internet page, ronkeel.com, and check out his new CD, South by South Dakota. Pick it up. A signed copy for only $15 is a great bargain, and the CD is really good. Also, while you're there, check out his wife's book and everything else he has available for sale. Once again, I just want to say thanks a lot, Ron. It was a great chat. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button below. If you're listening to one of my podcasts, subscribe over there as well. Also, head on over to Facebook and follow my page, The Rock and Roll Experience with Mike Brunn, where each and every day we talk about all the rock and roll music that you love. That's it for this episode. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Till next time, see you later.